You are listening to the Young Sportscast. Stay tuned.
That was what I was covering. But I think I did.
If you would have to defend the Kansas City Chiefs on winning, could you do it in front of a camera with no audience?
I think I could. It'd be a one-sided argument. But
Well, this one's not going to be one-sided. And you still think the Chiefs are going to win?
the Chiefs are going to win.
You've been adamant since day one. They're going
Absolutely.
to the Super Bowl. They're going to win.
Absolutely. I didn't have confidence enough to tattoo it on my arm. But
what about your back? Not your back either?
Not my back either. No tattoos on this one. But, the Chiefs have been there before. This is nothing new for them. So, what is it, 4 out of 5 years that we've been to a Super Bowl? And quite honestly, we could have had another one there if we didn't have a little defensive mishap penalty at the tail end by Dee Ford. But we won't go back that far. But anyway.
But you have to admit this is a different team than the last time that they went to the Super Bowl. Yeah,
there's parts that are different and parts that are the same. I mean, think about the key cogs are still there. You've got Mahomes, you've got Andy Reid, you've got Steve Spagnuolo.
You got Nagy too, right? Was he there when you went to the Super Bowl last?
I don't think he was. I think he was with the Bears. And we have Chris Jones and Travis Kelce. And so, I think the major pieces are still there. And so it's not the same team, though. You are correct. We have a better offensive line. Arguably, we had some offensive line struggles when we've been to the Super Bowl in the past. Our offensive line has held up a lot better. They've given Mahomes time to pass. They've given him time to do what it is that he does. So ultimately, I think the pressure.
But what about Hill and the minus Hill?
Minus Hill.
Does that change? You're talking about an offensive line, and I get that, but does it change too with the receivers?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. We have a different receiving core. We have a lot of young guys. But, in the big moments, they've all stepped up. I mean, MVS has stepped up. He's had his issues, but he's also stepped up. Justin Watson stepped up when he needed to. Obviously, Travis Kelce is our number one receiver, even though he is a tight end. And then Rashee Rice, I mean, he's come on. And he's played a whole lot better on the second half of the season than it was when he started. Obviously, as a rookie, we don't have that expectation of him. So I think there's a lot of promise there. But, yeah, absolutely, we miss Tyreek Hill. There's no doubt about it that the team is different without him.
So, but here's the thing, too. I did a little bit of research. Drop balls in regular season, 44 drop balls, with a 6.9% drop percentage. Yeah. I mean, how... That's not the same as what it was when Hill was there. I looked at the numbers between 2022 and 23. They weren't even comparable to the point that it's like, if I was to look at those numbers by themselves, I would say, how in the heck did the Chiefs even get to the playoffs? And then to say that they're going to beat someone that is in the top 5 in offense and defense.
Yeah. I mean, the drops are, there's no denying that there were some drop issues. But one thing is to look at how the Chiefs have come on during the playoff season. Our drop percentage has dropped down to 3.3%, I think.
What do you like in that? I mean, what do you contribute that to?
I think it's the pressure. They're just better under pressure. And that's kind of where, I say they've been there before, and that sounds cliche. But, by being there before, they know what to expect. The pressure, they also don't take it for granted. I've heard several of them say that, that you're lucky to make it to one Super Bowl. So even though the Chiefs have been there repeatedly and we're better back-to-back now, they're not taking that for granted. They're taking it seriously. I mean, you look at what Mahomes is doing with his team as a leader. He's telling them, hey, this is not the time to party. The time to party is afterwards. So let's focus on the job that we have to do. So I think the experience that they have of being there before and then coming back, I think those guys are what's going to lead the young guys on the team and saying, hey, if we want to finish strong and we want to do this right, this is what we've got to do.
But the other thing is, too, is you talk about being there before, but I also know that the defense of the Chiefs is one of the youngest in the NFL, right?
Absolutely.
So there's quite a few of these defensive players that haven't ever been to the Super Bowl. So to them, this is a new experience. And you're absolutely right. The veterans need to step in and say, hey, what do we need to do to, calm you guys and make sure you're in the game and you're in the moment. But when I look at the defense of the 49ers, completely different than the Chiefs. There's more veterans involved. There's more pressure they're going to be putting on Mahomes.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, there's going to be a alignment out. So now you got to deal with Chase Young. You got to deal with Nick Bosa.
Oh,
Warner.
no.
I mean,
you got to respect the 49ers and their defense and what they've got. I mean, even in their offense, too. But by the same token, I think the Chiefs' defense is severely underrated. I mean, that's a bunch of young guys. Nobody's heard of these guys. But that's part of the beauty of it, is by not hearing of them and not knowing about them. Mahomes and Kelsey, they get the camera time. But these young guys, they're doing what they need to do, especially, you look in the playoffs. I mean, you just can't underestimate the impact that they've had. And, obviously we have Chris Jones, 10.5 sacks this year, 13 tackles for a loss, 29 times that he's had the QB hit. So a big question there is, what happens when Brock Purdy's got Chris Jones flying at his face? Karlaftis, he's got 10.5 sacks.
But if you add Christian McCaffrey in, right? You add Christian McCaffrey in to take that pressure off of Purdy. And we know that the defensive end and the edge of Kansas City is a very young, inexperienced. You got Deebo Samuels doing the sweep. I mean, if you add that in and they spread that out, Chris Jones becomes, he's not even involved in the game, right?
Well, to a certain extent. But I mean,
I'm sure he's still involved, don't get me wrong. But when you go out to that's where the weakness is, I think, on the defensive side of Kansas City, is the defensive end and edge.
Our safeties have played well, and Spagnuolo does a lot of crazy things and disguises things in a lot of ways. So I think, ultimately, again, the pressure is going to come back to the 49ers, and when it comes to running, we just played Baltimore. I mean, nobody runs any more than Baltimore does, and yet we were able to keep Lamar Jackson in check. So it's the same concept, and I think obviously we're going to learn from tape and film, just like they're going to learn from tape and film of how do we keep Christian McCaffrey in check. We're not going to keep him to 0. I mean, that's just unrealistic. But how do you keep him to a level that's manageable, that allows Mahomes to do what Mahomes can do, along with Kelsey and the rest of the offense?
So I did I looked at the red zone offense. The 49ers are ranked, they have 68.49% chance of scoring a touchdown. We were talking about defenses. Yeah. The Chiefs are 52%. This game, I don't think, is going to be won on field goals. 3 points is not going to cut it when you have both offenses that can score. I mean, we talked about the defenses. If the Chiefs are struggling with any of the defenses, when you look at the defense of the 49ers, they're in the top 5 ranked. Right? So if they're at 52% as an average, I don't see how Mahomes, other than the first quarter, he does phenomenal with that opening drive. He can get down there and do it. But you got to finish the game. And when I see 52% and away, which both of these are away, is 51%.
Yeah.
And we talked about the years before. This is, they've been here before. In 2022, they were 71%. So
sure.
Even though this is the same team that we talked about, this is a different team to a certain point, because they're not even close. I mean, 52% and the 49ers are at 68. How do you combat that?
Yeah, when you talk about a different offense, the deep ball isn't there as much. We're passing a lot shorter. We're running a lot more.
Why is that? Drop balls?
You have to change. If you do the same thing over and over again, other teams are going to key in on that, and part of it's personnel. You got to play to your personnel's strengths. So, and I think, again, you talk about touchdowns, and obviously touchdowns are going to be important, and I don't think we're going to win if we just kick field goals. But I think the importance of going down the field and putting points on the board can't be underestimated. I mean, ask Detroit.
No, you're right.
Ask
you're
Detroit.
Absolutely.
One field goal changes the entire ending of that game potentially. But you look at Mahomes. Let's just take him as an example. I mean, he's number 1 in the NFL in scrambling for first downs, and I think that's another key piece. We can't go 3 and out, and the 49ers are in the same boat. They can't go 3 and out. Like, if you come away with 0, then the pressure is back. Again on your defense to get you back the ball. So Mahomes, he's number 1 on that scrambles for first down. No interceptions in his last 4 games. I mean, that's a difficult thing. As good as this 49ers defense is, they're coming up against a guy, and he's not. Again, we weren't the number 1 seed, so the Chiefs are the number 3 seed. So we've already played the Bills, we played the Ravens, and even if you look at how many of the top 10 defenses that we played, I think we played 6 out of the top 10 during the season. So no interceptions last 4 games, and his passer rating in the last 2 games is over 100. So again, going back to, he played number 1 defense arguably in the Ravens, and we still came away with 100. Not that it was a perfect game, but I think that's part of the key. And I think a lot of that then is the pressure on the 49ers defense. How are they going to perform? Are they going to be able to take away Mahomes? It's kind of like the McCaffrey. You're not going to stop Mahomes.
No, you're not.
And if they go all zone, he picks them apart all day long.
They better, if they go zone, they're screwed.
Yeah.
But they better put 2 on Kelsey. If they shut down Kelsey, I think this game is a different game, because that is his number 1 target. When I was going through the numbers, there's nobody close to what Kelsey gets in receiving yards across the board with the Chiefs. If you shut down Chiefs and you can shut down Pacheco to 3 yards on a carry, this game is over.
Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes by himself, I looked at the statistics of who the 49ers have on the offense. You have Deebo Samuels, you got Christian McCaffrey, you got Brandon. The list goes on and on and on. You got number 1 receivers across the board. When you look at the Chiefs, you have Mahomes and Kelsey and Pacheco as your running back. That's it. I mean, there's other receivers, but they're not necessarily, if they were on other teams, they would not be number 1 receivers.
Right.
And with the drop passes, it's like I don't see how the Chiefs are going to be able to overcome that defensive line of the 49ers and have the safety and not. But you're right, they haven't thrown a lot of long balls. They haven't, but I think that's because they can't. Can I say they can't catch it? I mean, they can, but
you bring it out when you need it. I mean, you look at the last game. MVS caught that ball.
You're
I can't remember how many yards.
He did.
So you bring it out when you need it. You're trying to play that. And if you look at Travis Kelce, I mean, in the playoffs, he's averaging over 70 yards a game just by himself as a tight end.
But is he playing tight end or wide receiver? Because there's more times than not that he's farther than a tight end would typically go. Correct?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, normal, but I see a lot, where he's just running right there in the middle, and he can block.
He knows the defense.
So I mean, he's just a big guy. But yeah, I get it if someone wants to say, he's just a big-bodied receiver. But you know what? At the end of the day, he's doing his job, whether it's blocking or whether it's catching passes. Right now he's got 8 postseason games with over 100 yards, which ties Jerry Rice for the most. And then obviously Mahomes and Kelsey have that touchdown connection, so 17, which is an all-time record. So, as good as Mahomes is, I don't want to take anything away from what Travis Kelsey has done either. I mean, a tight end that's matching a record set by Jerry Rice, I mean, that blew me away.
But here's the thing that I'm going to argue with. That's because he's the only receiver that catches the ball. Not the only one, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, he's the one that's dependable. When Mahomes sees 2 guys that are open, it's going to Kelsey. So you're absolutely right. He's a great tight end, and that's hard to believe he beat Jerry Rice on the numbers, and that's phenomenal. But part of the reason is because the other guys dropped the ball, right?
But consider he's proved himself prior to when he was our number 1 wide receiver. So even when Tyreek Hill was there, he's still performing at an elite level. And I just think in today's NFL and the way that the teams are operating, there's not many teams that are even coming close to having a tight end that's operating at Travis Kelce's level.
Oh, no, you're right. Absolutely.
And, let's not forget, whenever Taylor Swift is in the building, Travis Kelce performs at an even higher level. We are 9-3 when she's in the building. And do you realize 9-3? And do you realize that his yardage when she's in the building increases by almost 30 yards a game?
If she was in there, and I was on his shoes, it'd probably make me lose.
So I just look at it this way: he's on the biggest stage in the world right now, trying to impress his lady love. So I hope he goes out and blows the top off.
So it's blowing the top off. So if you want to blow the top off, I looked at the numbers of the 49ers total touchdowns versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't even know why the heck the Kansas City Chiefs are even in this whole thing, because I added it up. Rushing touchdowns this year for the 49ers, 27. Receiving touchdowns, 33, for a total of 61. Don't forget that number. 49ers, 61 total touchdowns. I did one on the Kansas City Chiefs. 9. 28 and a total of 39.
Yeah.
If you add those numbers up there, if the Kansas City, you keep talking, we talked about Mahomes and Kelsey, but based on these numbers, if the Kansas City defense doesn't show up, they're done.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can put all you want on Mahomes and Kelsey, and everybody talks Mahomes, Kelsey, et cetera. But I'm sorry, based on these numbers here, if the Kansas City defense does not show up, it's going to be a blowout. I mean, look at the numbers.
Well, I don't know that I go that it's a blowout, but obviously you need
like 14.
You need every piece of your team to show up and actually play. And at the end of the day, I think, again, we come back to how the Chiefs have performed in the playoffs versus in the regular season. And a lot of that goes to the offense. But on the defensive side, I think throughout the entire season, they have just gotten better and better and better. And so, when you're looking at, again, Karlaftis, he's got 10.5 sacks. Our cornerbacks, we got Snead, we got McDuffie, you've got Connor at safety. And I think, again, it's underestimated. You don't even realize how well he has done. We've got Reed back there. I mean, these guys, they're all doing their part, and they're all putting up good numbers. When you look at Snead alone, he's got 13 pass breakups. He's got plus interceptions for the year. So our defense is second most in sacks. And again, we've played 6 out of the top 10. We played the Dolphins. We played the Ravens. We played the Bills twice. We played the Eagles. We played the Bengals. It's not like the Chiefs just had an easy road to get where they're at. So I think, again, looking at their defense, you're right. If they just all don't show up and play, it could be a problem. But then again, now we're looking at, coaching, and we're looking at what does the 49ers offense do? Because the 49ers offense has struggled themselves. Let's be real. That I think the media has portrayed that this is a team that's invincible and this team can run over anybody and pass anybody. But, Brock Purdy's not without his own lumps and warts, and especially in the playoffs.
But I've seen him with Detroit. Remember, with Detroit, down by two scores, comes back and wins it. I mean, this stage is not too big for him. So,
see, and that's where I think you and I will really disagree, because I looked at what he did with the Packers and I looked at what he did with Detroit, and I say the Packers lost and Detroit lost, not Brock Purdy won. I saw too many balls that were going into the ground. I saw Brandon Ayuk, that one catch, if he didn't have, magic arms, pick that ball up before it hit the grass, that's another incomplete, stalled out drive.
But here's the thing, too. I've said this on different episodes and podcasts, is the fact that with the Kansas City Chiefs offense, you have Mahomes that makes his receivers look good. There's a good chance with Brock Purdy that he has the receivers that make him look good, right?
Absolutely.
So the coaches are the same way. I think Mahomes makes Nagy look good, by the way. Not the other way around. But the point is, right? So I think with Purdy, you're right. He is growing, but I still don't think that he's going to get flustered. And we saw that's what my point is with Detroit, is I see with that he's able to come back from a 2 possession. I think it was I don't know if it was 3, but it was at least 2.
Yeah.
And win the game. So I'm saying the pressure's not too big for him. But does he need receivers to make him look like a Mahomes? Absolutely. I think that all day long. Play calling is huge. But with Mahomes, he has to make his receivers look good.
Yeah.
And Kelsey does that for him.
Yeah. Kelsey definitely helps out in that area. And I'm not saying that Brock Purdy, he's got a ton of potential. I love his story. I love what he's done this season.
Too. Yes.
But again, I think sometimes maybe the narrative is we want this guy to succeed because he is Mr. Irrelevant. But then if you take a real good look at exactly what it is that he's done, I'm like, what would he look like on another team, to your point, if he didn't have those
absolutely.
receivers?
If he didn't have the receivers and the coaching he has, you're right.
Yeah. So, but I also don't, I don't want to I never want to forget the coaching. You look at what Andy Reid has done, and I know there's some people that say, well, Mahomes is what makes Andy Reid look great. I think Mahomes makes Andy Reid look great, and I think Andy Reid makes Mahomes look great. Look at what he had done even before Mahomes had got there. Already had 11 playoff wins. You look at some other coaches, you're talking Bill Parcells, you're talking Sean Payton, you're talking Tony Dungy. Parcells had 11. I think Dungy and Payton had 9. When you put him into that category and you look, that's what he had before Mahomes, and so all he did was just keep that going. And you're looking at him with the Eagles. It wasn't like he was an unsuccessful coach. He's been to the Super Bowl before he got to the Chiefs. So I think he deserves a lot of credit as well.
I agree.
Obviously a Hall of Fame coach. But I think the pressure is on Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers coaching staff, because they haven't been able to close the deal. And so, can Brock Purdy handle that? Maybe, but can the coaching staff handle that? Are they able to actually, try to get across the finish line? I'm going to say no way. I'm going to say, you know what? I think he's a great coach, with all due respect to him and what they've done in San Francisco. I just don't think when it comes to Andy Reid and his experience and how many times he's out-coached someone else, I think you can't buy experience. You can buy talent, but not the experience.
So you're talking about experience, but another thing that I found out too is the actual points per game, passing touchdowns, and every way the 49ers are leading that entire thing. So yes, you take the experience of Andy Reid, but at the end of the day, the numbers don't say that he's a good enough coach to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
Even though you talk about experience, I think that's what you're saying is if we were talking a normal game, it would look like the Niners are going to win, but because of the pressure of the Super Bowl, there's a good chance that Andy Reid has the edge because he's been there before. Is that what you're saying? Even though the numbers would say Niners have...
Yeah, the intangibles. I mean, because, you look at a piece of paper and we say, this is how each team has performed, but there's so much that goes more into that, in terms of who's injured, what teams are they playing. I mean, because, it's pretty easy, in Purdy, he threw for 2 touchdowns in a game, and that sounds great, except for you're against the Commanders' defense. Like, I'm sorry, that team is not a formidable defense at this point in time. They are rebuilding. So again, sometimes the numbers that are on a piece of paper skew the story just a little bit. And I think the intangibles of Mahomes, what he's able to do on the run, what he's able to improvise. Again, we talk about Travis Kelce. They're both great independently, but putting them together and what they're able to do and be on the same page, like, that's amazing. There's just not too many connections like that where a guy just always knows where that receiver or that tight end is going to be, and he's in the right place at the right time, and they make a play.
So do you think if the 49ers can shut Kelce down completely, shut him down, and I'm not saying shut him down completely, but he's 50 yards, 80 yards for the entire game, and everyone's like, there's no way he's going to have more than that. What is the chances of the Chiefs winning if they can shut Kelce down?
Obviously, that puts a lot more pressure on the defense. I mean, we talked about that earlier. Mm-hmm. What if the defense doesn't shows up? And there's a lot of what ifs. I still think the Chiefs have the edge, because let's look at how they've been able to make adjustments. You look at what they did in the Ravens game, and I know offensively, we didn't score any points in the second half, but they were able to make some adjustments at halftime in terms of what the Ravens defense was doing, and so that we were still able to get a level of success. So I think all of it comes down to that. Which coaching and which team can make adjustments and follow through on them. And then ultimately, which is probably semi-obvious, but whichever team makes the fewest mistakes is likely going to come out on top.
I think that's huge, just the mistakes, though.
Sure.
The punts, the small things in the game, because I think it's going to be a very, very super competitive game.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about Purdy, and I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but his first half stats aren't good. He's got a passer rating of 59.
So what about seconds?
So second half he comes up to 91. But
there
again,
you go.
remember what I
difference.
said.
I know.
Mahomes is 100.
But then what happens in the third and fourth with Mahomes? The third and fourth quarter, his numbers drop.
But he's averaging 100 for the game. So what I'm saying is that Purdy's average, a 50 and 90. I don't know how that all factors out, but let's just say it's 70.
If you take Kelce out of it, what does his numbers do?
Well, that's a good question. I
don't know, but I'm saying straight up, if the Niners want to win, I think you have to take Kelce.
Yeah.
And Pacheco out of it, or give Mahomes no time to throw, and that defensive line does all the work. That is the way they're going to win this.
I think obviously Kelce's going to have he's going to have focus. I mean, the 49ers would be stupid not to actually try and put some focus on what is largely considered the best receiver on the team. But by the same token, when you do that, you are opening up other areas.
Oh, absolutely.
If MVS and Justin Watson and Rashee Rice, if they can come in, let's not also forget.
They got to catch, though,
Blake
first,
Bell.
right? They can't drop. They got to catch.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. Let's not forget, I think I said Blake Bell, but Noah Gray, the other tight end. He comes out, he's a playmaker.
He is.
He is, but nobody talks about him because Kelsey's obviously number one as tight end and receiver. So the Chiefs have guys there that can do it and have proven that they can do it. It's just a matter of, they've got to be on the same page with Mahomes, and that's what we rely on that 2 week, this 2 week span for. get on the same page, get in the right mindset, and go out and do what you do.
So what do you think the final is?
Well, it's going to be fun. My final score prediction, I think I'd say 24-17 Chiefs.
You're saying Chiefs are going to win this?
Absolutely. We've already covered that.
I thought you were saying the 49ers are going to win this whole time.
No. The Chiefs are going to win. Here's what's going to happen. It's going to come down, may come down to a last-second kick. We already know the 49ers kicker, he's had little struggles here in the playoffs. So if it comes down to special teams, this ain't going to be good. So, but I don't expect it to be a blowout on either side. I think both teams are going to come in and know what they're up against. So 24-17. That's my prediction.
All right, so I think it's going to be 24-17 49ers. And I think the 17 from Kansas City comes in the first half. In the second half, they can't score. I think it's 24-17, and I think it's 17-17 at halftime.
At halftime?
And all that's led, basically they came out, 49ers come out at 7 points. It's 24-17.
Well, I'll agree with you that it's 17 for the Chiefs at halftime, but I think it's only 10 for the 49ers.
It'll be 10.
17 then somehow we get 17-10, and the Chiefs are going to come out in the second half. They're going to score at least one touchdown.